Chevron 1, encoded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry havoc, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2, encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that, killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3, encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4, encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5, encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6, encoded.
Not for why you can, punk boy.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Saturday Night Drive-In. As you can see, we're short one this evening. Lady B had to work. It could not be helped, and we couldn't get a third in so short notice, so it's just myself and Jed, the Hollywood Scholar. Jed, good evening to you, my friend. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm always excited for these evenings because we get to talk about something positive, at least most of the time, and take a break from all the other stuff going on, especially this week.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a positive discussion for me, at least.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to be a negative discussion. I think it's going to be a lively debate and discussion over the movie. I didn't outright hate it, but I do have some strong feelings on it as to why I'm probably never going to watch it again. But we're gonna get into it. Howdy. So Jed's here, I'm here, and we have, of course, the chat. Hail and howdy to the chat. We are glad you're here. I see Legatus and Mustang, aka Trenko Waters, my mods, my irregulars. How you guys doing here? Keep the peace. I see Kayla Dare and anybody else watching, not chatting. That's just fine. We're happy to have you here on this Saturday evening, where I'm sure sometimes you could probably be doing better things, but hey, hang out with us. We promise to make you laugh a little bit. Anyway, we're here to do Good Will Hunting, starring one Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Minnie Driver, Stellan Skarsgård, and the late great Robin Williams. Jed, this was your choice this week, so without further ado, there's only two of us. Let's go. Jump us into it.
All right. Well, yeah, Good Will Hunting is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. And specifically because a lot of you guys know I'm very character-based, very story-based when it comes to the entertainment I choose to consume. And this feels like very much a character study to me of Matt Damon's character. And it just really develops him in a way that I find fascinating. And part of it is a bias because I can relate to a lot of the stuff that he goes through. Unlike, modern day, you have to relate to someone based on how you look. I relate to his story because I share actual life events with him to a certain extent. So I can see why he is the person that he is. And it fascinates me. Well, my biggest criticism of this movie come in that it feels like an independent movie. Like, it's hard to believe that, like, Miramax funded it in the 90s and that it's got this incredible cast. But at some points, the cinematography, the editing, just the camera quality isn't up to snuff of what you'd expect from a production like this. Especially that slow-mo Casey Affleck punch. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, the slow-mo fight period, that opening slow-mo fight. Yeah, that was weird. But for the most part, though, that's one of the things I gave it points on is that Gus Van Sant actually did a good directing job. A lot of the shots I felt for about 80% of the movie were well situated. A lot of the scenery shots, a lot of the character shots, when especially during discussions where sometimes
Some
one
great
character
angles.
is off camera and you're watching the person that's being talked to, or you don't see
Ooh,
them.
yeah.
So Gus Van Sant I liked I gave it points for that. I
Mhm.
mean, so
They
that
were
was one of the things that I
great.
did like about it. I thought it was an interesting choice especially during some of the major conversations.
Mhm.
It
Like
was really that was
Robin
a good
Williams'
choice.
discussion about at the duck pond
Yeah,
was just
that's exactly
awesome.
what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was
And
going to
Robin
say.
Williams at his utter best, one of his only
Yeah.
non-comedic roles. I love
Oh,
it.
he did a lot of non-comedic, but I mean, this is I'm going to say it flat out. This movie for me was at its best when he's on the screen.
Mhm.
When Robin Williams is there, that's when I was engaged. When he wasn't on the screen, I wasn't as engaged.
Mhm.
So before we get into the why don't you set the stage for this movie now? What is going on with Good Will Hunting?
Well, it follows the story of Will Hunting, who is a genius, a relatively young
Yeah.
genius, like a once in a lifetime, once in a generation Einstein comparable genius who is a delinquent based on his childhood trauma. So he's not living up to his full potential. He happens to get discovered by what was it, Harvard professor
MIT.
who really MIT. No, it's
MIT.
Harvard.
No, he's in MIT.
You sure? Because she's not.
She's at Harvard. They're up around there looking around when he runs the Mini Driver's character. Stellan Skarsgård,
Oh, is at a
Jerry is
different school.
yeah, Jerry works at MIT.
I never put that together. I just always assumed they were at the same school this whole time.
No, I'm pretty
Well, it
sure it's
tells you what
MIT.
I know about this movie. But MIT professor discovers him, tries to help him get out of a potential life sentence, not life sentence, but a substantial prison
Regular
time.
jail time, not prison, but jail time. I mean,
Yeah, tries to help him out.
Basically assault charges because we'll get into that we'll get into we'll finish up. We'll get right into it there. Yeah.
Well, and by helping him, the court requires him to go to therapy. So it's about his journey through therapy with Robin Williams as his therapist, Sean, and the emotional journey that develops from there in coordination with his newfound girlfriend, Skylar, from Harvard, because it's a different school than MIT, apparently. And I just want to say, Minnie Driver is a good actress. As much as Blood Origin would make us think that she's terrible, she was once a good actress. And I can't help but laugh every time she tells that blowjob joke.
That was funny. That was good. That was good. I like that joke. That was nice, solid, crass humor. I was okay with that. I mean, I honestly, I'm never into Minnie Driver. The only movie I was ever really into her with was Grosse Point Blank. That was
I
the
never
only
saw
movie.
that.
It's with John Cusack, where he's an assassin that's trying to get out of it, and he ends up back in his hometown for a school reunion while trying to find himself. But at the same time, while trying to get out, everybody is sent to kill him. It's got Dan Aykroyd in it too. It's a weird little movie, but because of John Cusack, where he's a psychopath, I can't watch that movie anymore. It's unfortunate. I actually really liked it. That's the one movie that she's in that she does it for me though. And but yeah, so Minnie Driver plays Skylar, who is picked up in a bar after an incident which almost became a fight, but not a fight. Well, I guess we'll get into that. And you got Ben Affleck, who's his basic buddy. As Robin Williams put it, no, he's family. He'll lie down in traffic for you. That was a good line. That's again.
Yeah, he would.
Robin Williams is just. It's good. Didn't he win a supporting actor award for this?
I think he got nominated at least, but
because he was brilliant in this. That's why people are always. I mean, people forget that he was a genius at comedy, but when he wanted to be serious, he could do the serious just as good as any other famously dramatic actor. That was the genius.
He did
of
win.
Williams.
He did win.
He did win. Yeah, I thought so.
It won a lot of Oscars, including like original screenplay, supporting actress, supporting actor, original score, which I did like the music in this. I miss orchestral.
I don't know. The Danny Elfman music really didn't catch with me. I mean, Danny Elfman does great stuff, but this one didn't really click with me. I can't remember anything from it.
The big moment that I always remember as being very good orchestrally is when Ben Affleck is on the porch of
the finale.
At the finale, standing on the porch, seeing if Matt Damon is home or not. Like the realization, I really like the music in that moment there.
Yeah, But that's a good scene altogether. And I know you know the famous story of the Robin Williams line, right? You know the famous story with that.
Yeah, that it was improv.
Yeah, that
I'm
after
gonna
like
see
a
about a
dozen,
girl.
yeah, and then he goes, "Son of a bitch stole my line." And it was like
Mhm.
a dozen takes or something like that, a bunch of takes, and finally he just did that because it just again the genius of Robin Williams, the
And it's
genius of him.
perfect.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I'm
works.
really impressed with the writing, especially considering how inexperienced both Matt Damon and, Ben Affleck were at writing at this time.
I'm sure there was some script doctoring
I'm
to
sure,
get in there.
but
Yeah,
to get
and
to this
again,
point, it's just
and
really
yeah,
solid.
and you have guys like Stellan Skarsgård and Robin Williams there,
Mhm.
probably giving notes. Why don't you let me do this way? Gus Van Sant, a veteran director,
Mhm.
enough people on there to properly craft it into the scenes. And then
Yeah.
again, the choice. I mean, Robin Williams, Stellan Skarsgård, solid, great
Very.
actors. They give life to the scene. They give presence to the scene.
Mhm.
But of
When it
course,
comes to
they
the director, though, like I do agree with you a lot on the cinematography and how he crafted it. I think probably my biggest problem with this movie is the pacing can get a little janky in the scene
Mhm,
transitions. The scene
mhm.
transitions aren't good.
They
They're
are
not.
not
That's
good.
what feels very independent to
Yeah,
me. That feels very like an
yeah.
independent movie to me.
Well, let's talk about the characters since we're getting into because that's a good way I think to start because you said this does it for you because it's a character study.
Hmm.
We'll start with Matt Damon's Will Hunting, who is the protagonist here. And since this was your choice, why don't you start about what you feel about Will, how you feel about him, and this and that? Because I have a feeling we're going to be a little bit opposed on Will
Hmm.
here.
Well, I'm a sucker for genius characters like the Doctor and people like that. I really like characters like that. But yeah, I really like how quickly they develop his character and with how little dialogue there are. There are a lot of great scenes in this movie that you don't need dialogue or were set up properly, like the Ben Affleck scene at the end of the movie. He
Mhm.
doesn't need to just say to himself, "Oh, I guess he's not here." We
It's
already know
payoff.
it's payoff,
Yeah.
and really like that. But when it comes to Matt Damon's character, it's you can see the trauma that he's been through. They only do one flashback in the entire movie to his trauma, and it's kind of a shared flashback with Robin Williams where you just see an older man walking up some
You
stairs.
don't know
That
who it is. It could be either
either
one. Yeah. You don't know.
because it's shared trauma, so it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter whose dad it is. And that's the only instance of a flashback, but Matt Damon perfectly sells everything he's been through without even discussing it because he refuses to talk about it, his trauma until the end of the movie. Except for like the fight with Skylar, he does mention a little bit like the cigarettes getting put out on him, and that's one of my favorite scenes with him is as he's just raving at Skylar because that's something that legitimately people with those types of histories and disorders do. They lash out when someone tries to care about them. And it's a lot more violent than people think. Like there's the classic in a movie, oh, I push people away so they don't have to leave me. And it's very more passively doing that in most movies, but he's actively pushing people away with
You
violent outbursts.
and you
It's
feel
very
like he might
representative
actually
of
he
reality.
might actually put his hands on her during that. You
Hmm.
actually, I mean, he does give her a slight shove up against the door,
Hmm.
but you feel like he might cross the line during that scene.
He
It
was
is a
always
powerful scene.
teetering. He was
Yeah.
always teetering on the edge of madness, and it didn't help that his genius didn't help any of that because his friends had been through similar stuff as him, but none of them were displaying their trauma as explicitly as him because it's a thing with geniuses is they come with a lot of disorders along with their genius as well, a lot of social disorders, so it's
Yeah.
just a bunch of stacking when it comes to Will Hunting where you just kind of feel bad for him even though he is a genius. Like
Right.
the genius is a curse, not a blessing, at least in his mind. And that's I think when you do genius right, it's not just, oh, I'm a superhero, I'm really smart. It's like, no, it kind of fucking sucks to be honest.
That's where I think I'm going to start differ with you. Is the problem is from the moment I wasn't buying into Will
Mm.
because his self-destructive behavior it really put me off from the moment. It's just when they start to fight, when they start the slow-mo fight, when that happens, it's just like, why are we doing this? Because he pissed you off in kindergarten. It's
He's
just
not
to me,
likable.
he's not that's the point. That's the perfect way. Will is not likable, and therefore the perfect way to put this, I was not rooting for him in this movie.
Mm.
He kept doing things that made me not want to root for him. It's basically his "I'm better than you" attitude, and yes, that is a flaw in geniuses when they realize, especially when Stellan Skarsgård's Jerry is trying to tell him it's frustrating being around you because you get this so easily, and it takes me
Oh, that's a
so long
great
to do
scene when
this.
he's on
And
his
they burn,
knees.
and when he burns it, and he's just so dismissive to him. That's just like that's at the peak of the movie at that point, though. But before that, when basically what Robin Williams calls him out for, basically, oh, you've just read all these books and you know all this stuff, so you're going to throw it back at people and you're going to put them off balance and you're going to use their own words against them, use their own situations against them. It's the repeating doing of that made me fail to root for him, because it's just, you've been the moment to me where I can understand it, I can forgive it up to the arrest where he's going to go away for the assault. But then when Jerry works the deal out, it's like you get probation to work on math problems with me, and you get once a week therapy sessions until you're 21, basically.
Yeah.
Which is what we discover later on. They didn't lay that out clearly, I think, early on. They didn't really crystallize that until he's like a week away from being 21 or something like that. I actually thought he was a little older.
He tells Ben Affleck that once about halfway through the movie that it's until he's 21.
Yeah. I didn't realize they were that young at the start of the movie either, because they're drinking all over the place. I was like, wow, okay. They're not, he's underage. Okay. But the repeated, up until he gets arrested, I'm okay with it, because, okay, I'm not rooting for him, but I'm going to forgive it. But after that, when you're facing prison, or not prison, excuse me, jail time, get a clue, dude. Everybody's trying to help you. And I understand it's the trauma aspect of it, and that's part of the story of the movie. But I feel as though his behavior is too much in that aspect for me. It's just like, dude, why are you telling lies to this girl you like? Why are you making lies about your family? Yeah, you don't want to tell you're an abused orphan, but you could have just said, I don't have family.
Yeah,
you didn't have to use his super memory to list off a bunch of names that he made up off the top of his head. And then to make her confront it later on during that and I'll give you, that's an emotion. That's one of the only scenes where Robin Williams isn't in it that had me at attention, when he has the meltdown in her room at Harvard. But it's just like, I'm not rooting for him, and I still don't root for him. And at the end of the movie, when he has the breakthrough, the famous "It's not your fault" scene. Yes, I know we're at the end of the third act, and got to wrap it up. Get the hook, the music's playing, got to wrap things up. I feel like his recovery is too quick there. I just felt, okay, suddenly he's okay after a whole movie of being a dick to everybody and purposely being antagonistic and trying to really get people's attention. Now, suddenly, after that one moment, just after the breakthrough, okay, now he's okay. It's just, I needed a little bit more there.
I can see where you're coming from with all of that. He's definitely not a likable character, and that can be off-putting for a lot of people. I think the big thing is because of how strongly I relate to him. Like, it is far exaggerated. In the movie, they do exaggerate it, just like you're talking about. He goes over the top sometimes. But that's stuff that I can say from personal experience is something that would do. Like, I've struggled with being a pathological liar as a kid, just like he did with his brothers. That's something that you just feel like you need to do, and you do it as a reflex. Like when I was a kid, I was telling lies bigger than naming off 12 brothers. Like I've said stuff that is way more insane than that, way more insane, because you just need to. You don't even realize it, and there's no point to it a lot of the times when you tell those lies. Like when you think about it later, like, did I get anything out of that? I'm not getting any additional sympathy. I'm not getting any additional attention. No one's even reacting to it. What was the point? It's just you feel like you need to lie because you don't want to tell the truth, and you don't really know how to differentiate between the lie and reality at a certain point.
See, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. So I guess I need that explained to me. Okay.
Yeah. And it's the same with all the other stuff. Like, obviously, I was never a genius, but a lot of the other decisions...
You're my genius, Jed. You're my genius.
But a lot of the other decisions that he'd make, like being over the top, pushing people away, lying to Skylar, screaming at Skylar, all that is stuff that I've experienced. Like, it's... I could easily have chosen the same path as Will. I easily could be Will Hunting if I had made different life choices and didn't have people to help me through my darkest moments. I could have easily become him. And partially, like one of the things you mentioned about getting in that fight initially, it's a blue collar thing. I was raised in a very similar environment to him as well in terms of like class, people around me, what were the priorities, over eager to fight. And it wasn't really just targeting him for kindergarten stuff. It's more out of boredom than anything else because they don't have money to experience anything of value besides drinking. And so fighting is their entertainment. So the smallest slight, it's just like, all right, we'll have some entertainment for the evening. And that's something I understand as well.
Okay.
But
It's
yeah,
just
the
yeah,
slow
because
mo
that
fight is
that didn't make
ridiculous.
it didn't well the shot of it is ridiculous, and then hitting the cop and then trying to talk his way out of hitting the cop is like, dude, you hit the cop. That's
Hmm. Well,
yeah, touch
something
a
I
cop.
wanted to point out is a lot of people don't notice that but he's actually the same person, just at a different financial level than that kid at the bar when we first meet Skylar, who's just memorizing stuff and repeating it back, like you mentioned
Mm,
earlier. That's all he ever
yeah,
does in the movie is just do it to feel smarter, do it in court to feel
you're right.
smarter, to
Wow,
make
you're
himself
absolutely
feel
right.
better. That
Yeah,
is a mirror of himself, and he mocks him, and it's more about mocking himself as much as anything.
that's a
And
wow. I didn't see that. I mean,
when you
yeah,
match that scene where he's mocking the guy for quoting things like just like Will does, with the scene of Robin Williams saying you've never been underneath the Sistine Chapel and looked up at the beautiful ceiling and smelled what it is like in there. Those scenes work very well in tandem with each other because
you're
as
right.
much as he's said that guy is unoriginal, he's still that unoriginal. And
Yeah,
Robin Williams calls him out for being unoriginal. It's like you need a life experience. You're not just a a library. You're not just an encyclopedia of knowledge. You need to live a life.
see, that's the perspective of somebody who has seen this movie many times, and you can catch that. This is like the second time I've ever seen this movie, so I didn't pick that up. But I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And let's jump into Sean Robin Williams
Hmm.
again. This is what saves the movie for me. Why it's gonna not get why my rating is gonna be what it is when we get to the rating time. Robin Williams, just outstanding. And
Hmm.
I'm a very big Robin Williams fan. Gone Too Soon, and I can honestly say that I can have the sympathy for it because he was actually ill when he Minecrafted himself. It was because he had a brain disorder. He didn't choose to do it. He was actually ill. So
This is his story too.
Gone Too Soon is gone. You're right. It is as much Sean's story as that, and that's why I like it that he's there to the end, and I like it that he's there once he's in the movie. He's in the movie. He's not just in and out. He's there,
Hmm.
and his scenes with Stellan Skarsgård's Jerry are as impactful because what I love about it is that between the two of them, to kind of go back between them, between Jerry and Sean, they're both right. Neither one is completely wrong as I see it. Jerry is pushing Will, but he's pushing Will with good intentions because I can relate to Jerry very much because
Hmm.
I have that belief that if you push somebody, if you're frank with them, if you lay the on the table and do stuff, to me, if you're that straightforward and frank, someone should get what you're saying. And that's how you win it. But I've been told over and over again, you can't do that with everybody. Sometimes you got to take the Sean path. You got to
Hmm.
be a little. You got to be a little softer. You got to let them meet you. You can't just push them. Because see that I understand that, but I understand Jerry as well because I believe in
Hmm.
not needling somebody, but just giving them that little bit of tough love. I believe in a
Yeah.
little bit of tough love. It's like I'm not gonna pussyfoot. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm gonna tell you like it is and I appreciate that. And then I appreciate the struggle of Jerry being like, yeah, realizing that, God, this guy's brilliant. And I love it that Jerry, he's not really jealous. He's just frustrated that he can't be like that, but he doesn't hate Will for it.
Yeah.
I love that about him that he's not a mentor that hates this super diamond in the rough, this once in a lifetime perfect thing that you find once every few hundred years is there and he doesn't treat him like shit. He just really does want the best for him, but he doesn't understand that Sean's way of being empathetic,
Hmm.
of making that friendship connection. He doesn't know so much need the mentor as much as he needs the friend. And that's why Robin Williams' story in that is so good because it's also that parallel of a man who had everything as far as he was
Mhm.
concerned with his wife. He had everything. And then he lost it and he cut himself off. But it's that same willingness that Will is willing to slum it in South Boston forever because he's afraid of the
Mhm.
world. And Robin Williams, Sean, is ready to cut himself off from experiencing emotion ever again, experiencing joy ever again. For the same reason, maybe he's afraid to lose it, maybe afraid to get touched again, but he's willing to just hide from the world in just the same way. That's why I like it. You said they're both. It's his story as much as Will's because it's the same type of story. Two men, one at the beginning of his life, one in the middle of his life, willingly hiding from the world for different reasons, but still hiding from the
Mhm.
world. And Jerry, who just wants them to both be in the world, not hide from it, because even though Jerry is a bit of a dick to Sean, he knows he's good at what he does and he
Yeah.
should be out there helping people, and that Will needs to be out there to do these great and grand things that nobody else can do. Maybe one other person in the world at this period of time would maybe be able to do it, that he has to be out there to do it. So I do like that tight character structure.
No, yeah, the relationship between Sean and Gary is some of the strongest stuff. Or Sean and Gary, yes, Sean and you know
Okay.
what I'm.
I know why you did it. I know why you did it. It's okay.
But yeah, it's some really, really strong stuff. And you mentioned it is why Sean's way is the better way for Will, because he knows exactly like you're saying. He knows what Will is going through, so he can choose the right path. But from Will's perspective, even though just like how you said, Jerry's perspective is a very authentic one and not a manipulative one. Will, every person he's ever met who's shown an interest in him has either left him and damaged him or wanted to use him for one reason or another. So as much as Jerry's motivations were pure, Will would never see those motivations as anything other than manipulation. And so that's why it shocked him when Sean was just showing interest in him as a person. That's why Sean's way was better, because Jerry, no matter what he did, it didn't matter what
He never
decision,
would have
what
won.
approach. He never would have won. Even if he
No.
tried the same approach as Sean, it wouldn't have worked because he would get something out of Will, and so Will would never trust him that way.
And also, I think because Jerry is a mathematician, and and those that kind of wiring in your brain, things have to fit into place, and it's the equation and it's the order. But Sean deals with the chaos of the mind and the emotions, and those emotions do not fit into a nice tight little equation. And that's the problem of Will, is that Will is both the genius of the equation, but the raw chaotic emotion.
He's a walking contradiction.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. That's just the way to put it. He is a walking contradiction. He's a walking anomaly. These two things cannot coexist without proper development. And that's why that conversation in the bar between Sean and Jerry about, have you heard so-and-so? And they list off the genius. Like, one, you know who geniuses are, but then Jerry lists his own name. They don't know who he is because he's just a regular smart math guy. He's not super genius. But then they throw out the name of the Unabomber, Kaczynski, and it's like, oh, yeah, we know him, and say he can go that way. The one wrong turn, and Will go the wrong direction instead of being that great scholar, that great mind that will help change the world for the better. He might change it for the worse. And it's again, to me, the best points in this movie are either between the two adults or Robin Williams interacting with Will. Those are the best, to me, the best moments of the movie.
There's so many great ones to choose from when it comes to Sean and Will. I actually am one of the few people who don't really like the farting scene because I think Will starts laughing too soon. Like, it's just immediate raucous laughter. So that one's always bothered me. But the scene that you mentioned earlier at the end, at the climax, where he just said, "It's not your fault." Robin Williams is just repeating the same line over and over again, but he says it so differently.
Delivery.
Every time. It's
Delivery.
all about the delivery.
Both in expression and physical action. It's just because he's a physical actor. That's again the genius of Robin Williams. Both words and facial expression and body motion. He was a master at it in all of it. Master.
Well, and I know you mentioned it earlier. You don't really believe that scene, like it doesn't feel real to you, and especially the repercussions
Not so much,
from it.
No. That scene feels real. It's the post that doesn't feel enough for me. That after the breakthrough so quickly, everything is okay. I know that it's supposed to be a watershed moment where you have your moment, you've come out of it, and then the world will crystallize for you and breakthroughs. But I just feel like at least maybe more time passed than was portrayed in the
There
movie.
was a montage. It was months. There was quite a while till his birthday. Skylar was
Mhm.
gone for several months because we didn't
Okay.
see winter at all. It skipped right over winter.
It did. Okay. See that. Okay, all right. So the movie doesn't do a good enough job for me
Yeah.
then in portraying passage of time. And we are very big critics in the passage of time these days
Hmm.
in a lot of things we watch. I
We
want
are.
to know time has passed. I need something
That's
to
the
tell
pacing
me.
thing that's always
Yeah.
bothered me. But a different perspective, I can understand why Will seems to have changed so much at that time because it seems like he's all better now. But it's not really that. If you notice, he doesn't really express positive emotions after that point. He's just not expressing many emotions at all. But he's
Mhm.
making decisions logically because that is a powerful moment when you realize everything isn't your fault because again someone who's experienced some very similar stuff growing up I was told even by my parents that like repeatedly I was so evil the devil wouldn't take me. That was the mentality as a child. And
Yes.
so once someone finally told me it's not your fault, it is a
Mhm.
big moment, but it's so emotionally draining that you just feel empty for a long time after a watershed moment, and that leaves your mind clear. I experienced a very similar thing, and that's actually the period when I joined the military, is then that clarity after a watershed moment, just like you described. It's not that he's better, it's just that he's experienced so many emotions and such a release that he gets temporary reprieve, and that gives him enough time to make some decisions. These issues aren't resolved. They're gonna resurface pretty
Mhm.
soon, but it puts him on the path. It does look like he's all better, but it's more
Then
I'm drained
then
for the
I
time being.
will I'll refer I'll rephrase what I said then. Bringing up what you said that it's a pacing problem, and to me the passage of time was not expressed well enough, then I retract my statement. I guess if enough time has passed, then I can say, okay, the difference in his attitude is therefore logical, but they didn't express the passage of time
Yeah,
enough. To me, it felt
no,
like
I would
a week had
agree.
gone by. Just felt like
I,
a week had gone by to me. That was a problem.
I didn't get that the first time I'd watched it either. That falls into the pacing. It bothers me as well. I'm
Mhm,
giving substantial marks off this movie because of the pacing.
mhm,
But just going back to Sean's character, just that moment when he says it's not your fault is just so powerful to me. It
mhm.
speaks to me. I relate to it, and I don't have
I
to look
had
like Matt Damon to relate to it.
I had a moment sort of like that once, but I'm not afraid to admit this. I had a bit of a nervous breakdown once in college. It was just a complete nervous breakdown my sophomore year. It just not so much the pressure, but a lot of things happened at once, and I didn't so much lose it, but I really wanted to retreat inward, and I went to see
Hmm.
somebody on campus, and the problem is they did the whole "it's not your fault" thing, but they had me lay the blame on somebody whose fault it wasn't either.
That's weird. You shouldn't
So
transfer the blame.
they had me transfer to blame to somebody else, and I wasn't and I for a while I thought that, but then when I went back, like, no, so and so had nothing to do with this. Yeah, in retrospect, in hindsight, now that was not a good thing in my life in the end, but at that time, that had nothing to do with it. So they steered me in a direction of somebody being at fault. So that's why I initially thought, okay, if he just did that, how so quickly did he come through that? I guess so. That was my experience with
Yeah,
it's a not your fault thing. It's not your fault. You this that, but the way you put it though, more time passed. I can forgive it. Then I can
yeah,
forgive that, but then I don't forgive the pacing there
yeah.
because
No.
I felt completely out of it. Then it's like, okay, how is he good enough to go get the job? How is he good enough to not be melting down or self-destructing? How is he good enough to not be an antagonist anymore? Because for a while I thought, who's the villain in this movie? Will is the villain a
Oh,
lot in this
absolutely.
movie. I mean,
Yeah, he's
nobody
the
else is.
only villain.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's
And
the
it
villain.
helps that he has a goal too that really helps focus a person in a situation like that because he needs to get through his mandatory therapy and then go see Skylar. So
Well, he
that
chooses
help
it at the
and
end
get
to
the
do
job.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the job. It just having a goal helps. So just that does help
What?
quite a bit.
Let's talk about Minnie Driver and Skyler then. How do you feel about her character in this movie?
I like it. It's definitely not anywhere near one of my favorite aspects of it. It's pretty
Mhm.
interchangeable, but she does exactly what the story needs her to do. Is she's likable enough that you can believe it. She her banter is very strong with Will, and she's able to dish out as much as she gets, and that's something that Will really needs. And she's not going to get angry at him for his constant behavior, but she won't put up with it at the same time. Like she has this very good balance of trying to be in a healthy relationship, and it's
Mhm.
exactly what he needs. But again, it's really not exceptional. It's
Yeah, I
any
mean,
a lot of other great actresses could done it.
it could have been
Whereas,
anybody. Minnie
yeah,
Driver, it doesn't exactly own the role. She's
except for the
not in
blowjob
set.
joke.
That's funny. Blowjob joke is funny. I did laugh at that. I wasn't expecting it because again, I'd seen this movie once and I probably didn't
Mm.
even remember
And
that
the eight
scene.
ball scene was pretty funny too. Like
Yeah,
the eight ball scene.
but then again, most of their scenes together, with the exception of the emotional impact scene when they have the fight, take them or leave them.
Yeah.
To me, they're just like a little. They're a little cringy, honestly, for me.
Mm.
Like their first date, kind of cringy. The whole bar interaction, the first bar interaction, a little cringy because Will doing the when he shuts down the Harvard guy, I felt a
Hmm.
little cringe in that moment. Felt cringy to me. But their whole relationship, again, because of the pacing problem, at times I wasn't sure how long have they been together.
Hmm.
It was a little rough because nobody's telling me the passage of time here. And like you said, the seasons don't even really line up at
Hmm.
times. Like suddenly, okay, now they're wearing jackets. Honestly, didn't even register to me. Normally, I'm not. If a season is going to be shown, I see a season change. I don't just. They're not just
Yeah.
wearing different clothes.
Well, they go out of their way to show it usually, like a snowy
Yeah,
shot or something like that.
or
But
leaves
yeah,
falling, or this and that.
I
And
think besides the scene transition, the pacing would have really helped if once he made the deal with Jerry and whatnot, they said you'll be in therapy for this long. It's say like a year or
mhm.
something like that. Just put a finite number on it so that you can see, and then occasionally make a reference to how long you've been in therapy. They just need
Mhm.
the occasional throwaway reference. It doesn't need
I
to be cheesy. Doesn't need to be over the top.
pin it down.
Just pin it down.
Pin it
If
down.
it's a
Just
year,
tell me.
great, so that we know. But at that point, the only thing we hear is, "Oh, I'm going to be doing therapy till a week after I turn 21." Are you close to being 21? Did you just
And
turn
I didn't
20?
even know he was 20 the whole time. I didn't even know.
It's
Never
very, very
even
difficult to tell.
because when they're all drinking, it's like, okay, they're drinking. They're and especially in a bar. The bar is serving them drinks. And yeah, I know it's their local watering hole, so they probably don't care. But
That's a blue collar thing. I
I
could have
just
gotten alcohol if I'd wanted
yeah.
to.
Okay, see, I wouldn't even not I see I couldn't have gone anywhere to get alcohol when I was that young. So it was just, especially where I was at high school, it was shit. It was a college town. So where I
Mm,
was at high school, so there was unless you have somebody buy it for you and bring it someplace, you could not go into a bar and just get a drink. Didn't matter. Even the shittiest of bars, watering holes, pubs, whatever you want to call them in town where I went to high school, there unless you would get carded. You get carded. There
yeah.
was no way to get it. So to me, from that my perspective there, I'm like, oh, they're all 21 or older getting drinks. But now at the end of the movie, suddenly I learned Will is 20 the whole goddamn time. And it's just that's again part of what the movie loses for me is that they're not delivering certain information. And it's not as like it's a show don't tell problem. No, this is where I need you to tell me.
Yeah,
I
there are
need you to
times
tell
that
me little tiny bits of information that can be included in simple conversation. Not an info dumps, just could just be dropped in a conversation so that I understand where the characters are, what they're doing, where they're coming from, or the fact that okay, time is passing.
mhm,
I mean, it takes me a long time to realize that Skylar is a senior in at Harvard.
mhm.
Realizing, okay, that means she's 18. And if Will is 20, okay, I guess I can understand their relationship now. But
She's a senior in college,
yeah,
not in
she's
high
18.
school.
You're right. Sorry, 22. That makes her older than him.
Yeah, she's older.
That makes her old. Okay, yeah, see, again, because I haven't connected these
They only
things.
really mention it once, and that's like it sucks or whatever
Yeah.
because I've been here for 4 years and only just found you. That's like the
Yeah.
really only real reference until she talks about med school later on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like again, I need these. It's little things. We talk about this all the time when we do these reviews. It's the little things that make
Hmm.
movies perfect. I mean, and again, you say this is one of your favorite movies of all time. Just like last week, 13th Warrior, one of Jeremy's favorite movies of all time, but we still have our criticisms of our favorite movies when they go wrong. And when giving it an objective rating, we're going to give you objective ratings separate from our subjective ratings.
Yeah. No, I think you're going to be surprised about my score. You're going to be very surprised.
I don't think you'll be surprised at my score. I mean, frankly, actually, it went up a little bit when you gave me a couple good explanations for things. It's gone up a little bit, but I don't think you'll be too surprised at my score. Yeah, so Minnie Driver, especially Skylar, take her or leave her. I think any actress could have done it, and I think honestly, I think a better actress might have made some of those scenes between the two of them a little bit better.
Yeah, because that first interaction, like you're talking about in the bar, when she goes over and said, "Hey, I've been waiting for you to come say hi to me," that comes off as awkward to me too.
Yeah.
It's kind of cringy to me as well.
Yeah, so it's just so that's it.
And I think it's not as important as you'd initially expect, because it's again a conversation with Robin Williams that defines Will's decisions, and it's besides it's not your fault. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they're at the duck pond and it's that great close up that he just sits on for like 2 minutes straight, and he just talks about you've never been in a war, you've never seen anything, you've never lived, never smelled the Sistine Chapel, because Will needs to live a life. He needs to be given permission to live a life. And that's all that was with his final revelations, not your fault, is I'm allowed to have a life. It's not I'm allowed to be a genius and have a great job and a great family. It's like, no, I'm allowed to experience positive things. And that's similar to why I joined the military. Is I was relatively well educated because of how much I'd read. I read a lot like him, nowhere near the type of stuff he did, but I read enough that I could school a lot of the people I knew in similar fashions as he did, but I'd never experienced anything. And so that's why I joined the military. I wanted to go places, see things, do things, smell the Sistine Chapel. And so Skylar was, especially at the end of the movie, more representative of a safe goal, a safe location to go to be free of Boston, because he could not stay in Boston. Boston was too intrinsically tied to who he used to be. And so it necessarily doesn't matter that their relationship be 100% solid, because he just needs somewhere to go, a destination to give him the final motivation, to give him permission to go live a life and experience things. It's not about being rich and famous. It's about going to California, making some mistakes, being a normal person.
Going to California is a big mistake.
It's a big mistake.
It's a big mistake. Especially in that car. That car is not made for long distance trips.
Well, and Boston to California, that's nearly as long of an American road trip as you can get.
That
Besides,
is the
like,
longest.
Maine.
Yeah, that's literally the longest, because Boston's a coastal city out here on the East Coast, and that is literally coast to coast. That is,
and at an angle too.
Yeah,
you can't get much.
You got to go around. Yeah, there's no Route 66 in that shit. You got to go around.
Yeah, it's gonna take him a week.
Oh yeah, in that car
unless
too.
It breaks down, probably 2 weeks.
And here's also the thing too. I mean, he's doing that. How much money does Will even have to make that kind of road trip or anything? Because yeah, he worked that demo job with Affleck, but I mean, I'm not even sure what Will spends his money on. Because he lives in a shithole, so clearly he's not paying a lot of rent. But I mean, it's just, again, little things. These are the questions I'm asking: is how is he going to afford this road trip? I mean, yeah, in 1997, gas was 98 cents a gallon. I was there. I remember it.
Yeah,
I remember it. I remember it because that's when I got my car. I was like, yes. So that Shell station near my high school is tattooed on my memory. Yes, partial photographic memory, but that 98 cents a gallon, I see it every day. Every day, it's always there.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a logical inconsistency how he's able to pay for it. We just have to assume he has savings or something like that.
Spend his money on anything. That Ben Affleck's character was always the one buying him shit. I mean, which apparently kind of was always. And we're not even going to talk about Affleck because that's a waste of time. I mean, his
no, we need to talk about his character.
Okay,
yeah,
it's one-dimensional. The one scene that's important is the scene. Well, no,
the setup and payoff.
The setup and payoff. That's what I mean. The setup is the most important one, and the payoff, that's just part of the conclusion. He's there for that one scene. So, all right, walk us through that scene. Now, walk us through that scene. I was incorrect in saying that. It's just, for the most part, for most of the movie, he's just there. But he's there for that one important scene. So what is that scene?
Well, real fast, I want to mention with the card before we move on. I really like how it ends there with the car driving away. It doesn't show how he gets to California because it's like I was saying, it just he needs to leave, and
Mhm.
that's why it's important. And my
Yeah.
headcanon from another movie is what he did to pay for it all is I saw this in a movie when I was a kid, and I nearly did it myself because of how much I love the idea of you drive until you run out of gas or money, you stay at that town, you work there long enough to fill up a jar of money to pay
Mm.
for your next tank of gas to go. And like this lady in this movie, that's all she did is she'd come to a town. She was a drifter. She'd find a local job, work enough just to fill this jar of money, and then fill up her gas tank and go. And just that nomadic lifestyle really appealed to me. So that's my headcanon for what he did. But there's no setup for that.
Yeah, I appreciate the open-ended nature of that movie. Normally I like a nice finite conclusion, where this one's like, okay, he's heading out there, and that's it, and it's part of the process that he's taken that chance. That's part of the thing,
Exactly.
that because it goes back to the meltdown fight. I want you to come to California with me, but what if you find out that that you want to take back? Well, he's willing to take the chance now,
And that's
and
the
I
more
think that's
important thing
important.
for his character. Doesn't matter
And it's
how
a,
it works out.
and it's important to just leave it open like that. Whether they got
hmm
together or not is not important. I like my relationships to be nice and tied up. I like my romances to happen, but I'm okay not knowing how they worked out, because you know what? In the end, Will's going to actually be fine wherever he ends up. I
hmm
think at
He
this
can get
point,
work anywhere.
he'll work any job, and if he ever wants to actually use his powers, he can make bank. He can
hmm
make bank. So Will would be fine, but and he'll be fine because of the breakthrough, because of Sean.
hmm
Because
The emotional vulnerability.
he's not tethered to his past anymore like that. But that's the important. But I take back what I said. Maybe it's because I just want to dismiss Affleck, because I'm not a fan of Affleck either. I just want to dismiss him. But that scene at the
hmm
demo
I,
is is important. I take that back. I
hmm
wasn't thinking clearly when I said that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to breeze past
Well,
Affleck because I don't want to talk about him.
it's nearly as important for Will making the decisions he does at the end of the movie as the "it's not your fault" scene, because his big tie, the only person that he's vulnerable around is Ben Affleck. That's the only person he actually trusts before Sean, the one person. And so, of course, that's going to be the one that affects his mindset to such a degree that he is able to risk emotional vulnerability with Skylar
Mhm.
again. And so, yeah, and I actually had a very similar conversation with my cousin, who I've always said she's the only family I ever had, because her and I we went through all this together, and we were the only ones who got out really. And she had a very similar conversation: is don't stay here for me. She was a lot younger than me. I was worried about her, and we had a similar conversation. So it really speaks to me on that level as well. But
Mhm.
it's just Ben Affleck and Will at the demolition site, like you said, and he just Ben Affleck just goes, "You're sitting on the winning lottery ticket, and it's offensive to me if you don't play it. Screw you, fuck you. It's
Yeah,
about
and that
us."
that scene is great because that it shows you that everybody else is well adjusted. They're all well.
hmm
They may be a little bit of drunks, a little bit of a rowdy bunch, but they are well adjusted. That it's like, yeah, if we had your abilities, we would take the jobs. We wouldn't be self-destructive like you are, because we have our own problems, but you can get out of this. You don't have to chain yourself to the misery of living here,
hmm
and that's and you appreciate the self-awareness of Affleck's character, is that he knows what he is and where he is.
hmm
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
That's his station in life. He's
he's
not going to
accepted
rise
it.
above it. Yeah, and because I have X amount of intelligence, I have X amount of skill, and I am where I am, and this is where I'm. I will be comfortable in this life. It won't be the perfect life, but I'll be comfortable, and I won't be disappointed.
hmm
But will disappoint him, because he can he can move higher with the gifts he has. And that, you're right, it's mass emotional. And the famous line, and the line that pays off is, every day for about 10 seconds is the best part of my day, between my car and your door. And I'm hoping and praying that when I knock on it, you're just not going to be there. Not because I hate you,
Oh, great.
because you need to get the fuck out of here.
Well,
And
and it's so
yeah.
unusual not to say goodbye. Like, and that's what makes it so memorable, and
Mhm.
why Will has his reaction is like, "You don't want me to at least say goodbye to you? Like, I get you want me to, leave and be rich and famous or whatnot, but why don't you want me to say goodbye? And they don't really explain it. And there's a lot of great potential explanations for it. Like maybe a goodbye would convince Will not to go through with it.
I think in terms of the way I thought about it was words don't need to be said because
Mhm.
it's not a
That's
it's
what
not
I
a
always believe it
because
is.
it's not a forever goodbye. It's I'll be back when I'm better. When I'll be back when I can show you my life is better, and then maybe bring part of my improved life to your life. It's not a forever goodbye. It's till next time. That's why I think it's important. It's one of those things. I forget which other movies like we don't say goodbye. We say I'll see you later because goodbye is finality. That's we're done. We're over. We're never see you again. No, this is I'll see you next time. He's not going to be gone forever because, like to back what Sean said, that's his family.
Yep.
Those guys are his family. They'll lie down in the street for him. And that's a powerful line to me from the movie there. So they are. It's not a forever goodbye, and that's why I think, and that's why again, it is a great moment because there it is, payoff. It's one of like the two or three great payoffs in the movie. That one in the same
There's
scene.
no dialogue for the payoff. And I love a good scene that you know what's going on without dialogue. As much as I love dialogue, I'm a big sucker for useful, like talented use of no dialogue.
And the proper dialogue was the voiceover for the letter because we had to see it was in the letter. Couldn't just have us not see the letter. But then that's it. I tell the professor I'm sorry, but I got to go see a thing about
a girl. That was great. I love that line too. I got to see about a girl. But when it comes to Ben Affleck's character, yeah, those are definitely his most impactful scenes. But a lot of the other ones I think are important to show his chemistry with Will because he's his anchor. Ben Affleck is his anchor, the one who's got him through all this, but is also at the same time the one keeping him here. So it's toxic and very beneficial to Will at the same time. Like it got him to this point, but he's got to let him go to move any farther. And so I think it's very important just for those casual scenes where you see them being friends, so you understand why that relationship is so impactful to Will. And the other guys, they're whatever. They're not really impactful. It's Casey Affleck and Ben Affleck interacting with each other is really weird when you consider their brothers.
It is.
Like when they're making jokes about banging each other's moms or like, did you jerk off into my glove? And it's like,
or
brother,
like
man.
the whole jerking off in the porn of the mom's just like, no, I'm sorry, no dudes even remotely do that. No, never.
It's that's your brother talking about doing it in your mom's room. Like it's share the same mom.
Even that aside, that whole scene there of that is
so
like, no,
weird.
nobody does that. Nobody did that in high school. Nobody. We had one sicko. I've told that story. He was a little weirdo, but normal people, you're not doing that when you're just visiting somebody's house like that. Okay, when you're hanging out. No.
That's everything with Casey Affleck is just like, what were they thinking? Like I enjoy some of it.
They were thinking, let's get my little brother in on this. That's what they were thinking. It's like, we just got our big break. Let's get him in on this too. And now we're suffering all of them for all these decades now.
The only real line from Casey that I like is after Will shuts down that one guy in the bar and he turns to Minnie Driver. He's like, that dude's wicked smart. Just love how he says that dude's wicked smart. That's the only time I liked his character.
But again, I'm not an Affleck fan, but never really have been. I respect some of the roles, some of that, but the pivotal role, the demo speech that's the turning point. I think that's one of the pivotal points of Will, because that's when Will goes back.
Goes back to therapy.
He goes back to therapy, and that's it's not your fault.
Yeah, if it weren't for Ben Affleck saying that, he had never have actually
go back to jail.
gone through with it. Yeah,
because he skipped out to work and he didn't go back and he went to jail. So that is the make or break moment. It is. I give it that. All right, what else we got? Anything else?
Well, there's one big thing that a lot of people don't talk about that I want to is there's a character in this movie who has some great development with virtually no dialogue and virtually no actual shots of him. He's more in the background of every scene, but he's developed very, very well, and nobody talks about him. And that is Jerry's TA.
I thought he was
what
going to be a villain when he showed up for it. They're like, oh man,
Mhm.
he's going to be a villain.
I
He's going to be a
love
villain in
everything they
this.
do with him. Like there's some shots of him just being in the background, and you can tell he's really jealous. He's Will is everything that he wishes he was to Jerry, and he never says it. They never outright say, "Oh yeah, my TA is jealous of Will." They never have to actually come out and say any of that. There's no actual conversations where it admits his feelings about everything going on, but you can just see it. You can feel it. He has 2 lines of dialogue in the movie, I think, just 2, maybe
A
3.
couple. A couple. I can think
Yeah,
of
and none of them are really
scenes.
about himself besides the one line that he tells the other mathematician, "Sometimes you just get lucky." That's like the only line that is representative of his story just as much as what's going on. Everything else is, "Oh, we're in building 2. Oh,
Mhm.
it's this." And
Yeah.
it's I just really like his development, and it's mostly in the background. It's
Mhm.
non-consequential. You could cut it out and the movie wouldn't suffer. It's
And
background development. It's a supporting character that feels real.
there's a scene when Will has first started going to Jerry for problem solving, and they're doing the math and doing hand slapping, and you see what's the character's name? Jake is I think his name, or some other the TA, the
Oh,
guy you're talking about. I think his name is
yeah, yeah,
Jake or something. He's
something like
sitting
that.
there, and he shakes his head out of what of
Mhm.
apparent jealousy, and I thought, oh shit, is he going to be a problem? But nope, nope. He's just there.
Well,
But he,
most people wouldn't have been. Like, it's
yeah,
really hard to like. I think it would have gotten cartoonish if he'd actually done anything. But it's
yeah,
just background. He's jealous of Will. Like he watches him put his arm around Will, and
yeah,
you feel it. And he has to put his arm on the mathematician because that mathematician's going through the same thing he's been doing through this whole time. And you can tell he's really upset that Skarsgård is dedicating all this time into a boy who doesn't want to be there, but
mhm,
the TA wants to be there. He's like, I'm putting in the work. I'm here. I'm doing it. Yet you don't seem to care about me. And this kid,
yeah.
he doesn't want to give you the time of the day, and you're willing to give him everything you have. And
Yeah.
it's just,
That's an
I'm a
interesting point.
sucker for that.
Interesting point. That's an interesting point. I never would have even thought of that. Like I said, when I thought he was going to be a possible antagonist for a minute, but when he didn't go that way, I thought, okay, I've taken him off the board of people I'm
Hmm.
paying attention to. I'll admit that. I'll admit that. Hang on, real quick, JB. I'm gonna take you that. I'm gonna raise the Stargate SG-1. I'm sorry. I'm gonna raise the Stargate SG-1.
And I'll raise you Doctor Who. 60 years,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's a
50.
nerd debate for another day. I just had to comment on that there. Well, for only the two of us, we're at about an hour, and I think that's about as much as we can squeeze out with just two of us here. So let's give it a rating. And since it was your time, I'm gonna go first. It was your choice, I'll go first. I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10. I mean, it loses the points because, like I said in the beginning, uh I'm not rooting for Will most of the movie. It's hard for me to really feel like I'm having a good time when I'm not rooting for my protagonist just because of his
Hmm.
behavior for most of it. It's like, especially for me, somebody who desperately would take advantage of every opportunity to be throwing my way. Somebody just spitting in the eye. It makes it frustrating for me to watch, looking at my life and looking at that kind of thing. Secondly, like I said, like I said before, the lack of passage of time, the pacing is a problem we
Hmm.
both agree on, and it kind of screwed my perception of some things. But because of that, I got to take points off. Robin Williams is the only thing that gets it to over the 5.
Hmm.
He just I love Robin Williams, and he nails it in every single scene, and he makes the movie for me. He's the only reason I don't hate this movie, Robin Williams, because it's just a joy to watch him, and his
Hmm.
character's good, and he made Matt Damon a better actor in those scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
So I love it. And again, you liked it, but the Danny Elfman score didn't really do anything for me, so it didn't elevate it any higher. So I'm at a 5.5 out of 10. Where are you?
Well, I think, yeah, I still think I'm going to surprise you with it because one thing that I've always wondered about this movie that I have no expertise on to say is how accurate like the math is or the history that they talk about. Like I really wish I knew if that was accurate or not, because that's something that I would normally take into consideration and care about.
Not that kind of nerd.
But yeah, like that second equation he does where it's literally just like lines with circles on the end. I'm just looking at that as like, does this mean something?
If I put them together, is it going to be a password?
Yeah,
in a puzzle?
Yeah, I'm sure these lines and dots mean something. At least with the normal math equations, I have a base of enough knowledge to know, yes, that does mean something. But when it's just lines and dots, I'm just like, okay, I'm sure that's cool, but whatever. So I wish I had the expertise to comment on that. But the pacing and the scene transitions bug the hell out of me. It just feels so janky. Like the person editing it had never edited anything before. And that brings it down substantially for me. A lot of the technical aspects I really hurt this movie. But once again, just with a lot of the other things I talk about, there's a difference between my subjective score and my objective score. Because I relate so much to the story on such a personal level that it's very difficult for me to have the distinction between the two. So, like, if I were going subjective with my enjoyment, how much I get emotionally fulfilled by this movie, I'd be giving it a 9.5. But because I need to make that distinction and know that someone who doesn't come from a background like mine may not understand what's going on, just like you didn't, because they don't provide the explanations needed to. They don't
texture.
Explain. Yeah, they don't.
Texture.
They don't explain the texture enough for anyone who hasn't been through that to understand it. So they fail substantially there in the writing aspect. So I actually only give this movie a flat 7.
Okay, I honestly expected 8 or higher from you. So okay,
yeah. Well, if it was just about my enjoyment, it's right up there with some of the best movies of all time. But yeah, there's a lot wrong with it. That's why I call it an independent movie, even though Miramax did it, and the Weinstein brothers.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm like, yep, I'm gonna. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff. He's even there on Lord of the Rings. But I mean, I saw that. I had to chuckle. I just had to chuckle when I saw that, just because.
I hate the opening credits scene. I don't know.
I don't like
it
that.
Makes it
feel
like a rom-com or something.
I was unsettled by the kaleidoscope thing when it started. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm not into this because I gotta admit, when I watched this the first time, I missed the opening scene. So this was, coming at me like, what? I'm like, is there something wrong?
It feels like it's in a different movie. It feels like a completely different genre. And the same thing with the end credit scene. Like, it gets distracting, that big emotional moment, and then all the credits and the music changes and it's whatever. It's like, no, fade to black if you want to go to credits, but don't ruin the emotional moment of him driving away. So yeah, a lot of the technical stuff, the editing, it really, really bugs the hell out of me. If it weren't for the performances and the script, and that TA actually helps a lot. The TA subplot, it just was really cool to me that they were able to slip that in, and most people don't notice it. And a lot of people not noticing that you like them apples guy is a mirror of everything.
That's a great point. That was a fantastic point that you picked up on. Like you said,
everyone hates him.
Robin Williams and Stellan Skarsgård, they carry the movie for me, and that's why I gave it this idea because. And some of, like I said, the production value was really nice, and some of the camera work in terms of the monologues. Though I feel the impact of those scenes, but that's as high as it gets me. 5.5. Yeah. It's not a movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's not a bad movie, but it's not something like, unlike with you, it doesn't really touch the right points for me that I'm taken away or I'm enraptured by it. But I respect its technical aspects, and like I said, I am in love with Robin Williams' performance because he is he is one of the best of all time that could do both comedy and dramatic.
And they're given great content to work with. Like Robin Williams, he can make anything good, but like the mirror, like we talked about between Will and Sean, how he's just older Will without the genius part. There's a lot of mirrors, a lot of comparisons. The way that Skarsgård is. Will is everything Skarsgård wanted to be. Like, there's so many writing layers to it, and character layers and character development that I get why people may not engage with it. I totally get the engagement part, but
you gotta respect. Gotta respect, and that's why. And you get the feeling that they gave, especially Robin Williams, a lot of free reign.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
His scenes. Anybody, all the stories I've ever heard. You don't try to control Robin Williams on a set or in a movie. You let him go, and you're going to get genius. You're going to get brilliance.
Every time.
Even in his worst movies, you still get genius and brilliance because he was a once-in-a-lifetime performer with his range, the ability to go comedic and dramatic. And I mean, his comedy in this one is it's subtle. Is the word I want. Subtle. It's there, and you're listening. You're listening, and you're there. It's Robin Williams, and I love it. I love him.
It's such an impressive achievement when you consider the behind the scenes stuff. Like, they'd never written anything before, and then it got so many Oscars. It got Robin Williams involved, and yeah, that script. I do believe it's an incredibly well written script with technical letdowns. Like,
but I don't think this movie gets to where it is. Culturally, pop culturally, without Robin Williams. If he was not in this movie, I don't think this movie lands where it is without him. He makes this movie.
Well, he's also the one who got the director involved, got Miramax involved. Really? It's like not just his involvement being like, we remember his performance.
He uses juice. Okay.
Yeah, okay. He made this movie as much as Will or Matt Damon or Ben Affleck did. Like, I don't know how they got him involved, but somehow he heard about it, read the script, and he's like, I'm going to make this happen for you. You've got some gold here. And I really appreciate him doing that, because it gave me one of the most emotionally impactful movies in my entire life. Like, it really does speak to me on a level that I've never really seen before.
That makes my point all the more. It's just, this movie is Robin Williams. He is the heart and soul of this movie. And it shows. What have I talked to about the most in this? I've talked about Robin Williams the most, because that is what impacted me the most. And with that, we're done. Lady B chooses next week's movie. I don't know what it is, but I can tell you now what our movie for February 4th is going to be. Jed knows. I'm going to tell you right now, everybody. We'll go full screen for it. It's kind of a layup. It's an easy one considering the week. First week in February. Groundhog Day. That's right. February 4th, when it's my choice again, we are doing Groundhog Day, because it's only a couple days past it. Easy layup. I could not do it. All right. I want to thank Jed for being here as always. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun. Good discussion. Really good discussion. Really enjoyed it. Chat, we love you. Even though you're talking sci-fi shows,
they're not paying attention to us. We got one comment about the movie with him Twinkle saying it sucked.
Chat gonna be chat. Chat does what it wants. If you've been watching this live, we were happy you were here. If you're watching the replay, remember to hit that like button, leave a comment. We hope to see you next time. Again, happy everybody here, and we will catch you later. Take it easy, everybody. We'll see you on the next go round. Looking for the thing. There it is. There we go. All right. Good night, everybody.
Chevron 1, loaded.
For my ally is the Force, and the power for ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is loaded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi, and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Now, come on, you can, monkey boy.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron on 7 is